Good morning, everyone. My name is Gabayeron, and my task is to report the practice style in teaching physical education. What is practice style? Practice style will be used when a certain task must be performed according to a specific model, which also involves the student's needs for direct feedback. Teacher demonstrates the task and set up the opportunity to learners to practice and develop skills at their own pace. As pupils carry out the prescribed tasks, the teacher will circulate the class, giving individual and group feedback. For example, teacher demonstrates how to perform a jump shot in basketball. As students practice their shooting technique, the teacher will go around the class giving feedback. There are 8 types and methods of practice. First is part method. Part method often used when skills is low in organization and be split into sub-routines. If skill complex, this method is useful to help the performer make sense of the skill and achieve initial success with basic movements before progressing to the more complex movements. Useful when learning a dangerous skill. Performer will gain confidence by learning each element of the skill separately. When all brought together, the performer will have a better idea of the technique involved and be more confident. Particularly useful when teaching serious skills. This method is useful when practicing those aspects of a skill causing troubles in performance. For example, tennis service practice. Practice back swing first before striking the ball. Number 2 is whole method. Whole method is not breaking the skill down. Player experiences the true feeling, kinesthetic of the skill. More likely to positive transfer from practice to real situation. Player more likely to execute the skill fluently and can appreciate the relationship between each part of the movement. Rapid, ballistic action, the whole method is best because components of the skill interact closely with one another. For example, golf swing. Each part of the swing interacts closely with the other. The third practice is a whole part whole. Attempt the whole skill, then practice in parts subroutines, then putting them together again to practice as a whole. The whole part whole practice method is when a coach observes the whole skill before identifying areas to improve. The sport coach would then develop and improve an area within their performance before bringing the whole skill back together. An example of this would be a football coach observing a small-sided passing game and noticing their athletes were making errors when receiving the ball. The coach would then provide some support on how to receive a pass through different practice or drills and then bring it all back again into the same small-sided passing game. The whole part whole method is useful for athletes new to a sport as they can get a feel for the skill if they have never performed it before. It can also be quicker than the part practice method. Next is the progressive part or segmentation. Often referred to as training, a serious skill is often broken into subroutines that can be seen as link of a chain. The progressive part practice method is when a sports coach would coach or teach different parts of a skill and then bring these all together to create a complete skill. The example of progressive part practice method would be when coaching or teaching the triple jump technique. A coach would begin with the run up, then take off, then flight, and followed by the landing. Each skill would link to one another. Progressive part practice helps to develop a skill that needs a lot of information. Coaches can also break the skill into useful chunks and then slowly build the whole skill together. One disadvantage that we have experienced with the progressive part practice method is that if an athlete finds one step difficult, it can have an impact on the entire skill. For example, if an athlete struggles with the run up and long jump, this has a negative impact on the rest of the jump. Next is a mass practice. Practice that involves very short or no rest intervals within the practice session. Continuous practice period. Mass practice involves one skill being practiced repetitively over few but long sessions. Mass practice is good for highly motivated learners or when practicing simple, discrete skills but is very difficult and may cause fatigue and demotivation. Opposed to distributed practice, mass practice occurs when one skill is continuously practiced in a session with only brief rest period or none at all, therefore saving time. This may involve a variety of drills aimed at improving the one skill performed one after the other. Every person learns differently and responds to different practice styles. This practice is better when individually experienced, older, fitter, or more motivated. Better when the task is discrete or brief in nature or simple to perform. Rest periods used to reduce fatigue, give feedback, remotivate, or develop positive transfer. There are some advantages and disadvantages in mass practice. The advantages are good for learning simple skills, good when first learning a skill, allows skill requirements to be reinforced through repetition. The disadvantages: performer can become bored with the repetitive nature, requires large amount of concentration and motivation, and can cause fatigue due to no rest. The next types and methods of practice is the distributed practice. Involves relatively long breaks or rest periods between each attempt or block of attempt. Distributed practice is a technique whereby the student distributes his or her effort in a given course or activity over many study sessions that are relatively short in duration. This can be compared to mass practice, otherwise known as cramming, whereby the student conducts few but long study sessions for a given course or activity. It has been proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that meaningful learning is promoted when distributed practice is conducted. For the long-term benefit of the student or athlete, distributed practice should be the method that an excellent student or athlete chooses to use. For distributed practice to be successful, the student must be able to follow his or her study schedule and be able to avoid distractions and interpretation. There are also advantages and disadvantages in distributed practice. The advantages is good for continuous activities that could become tiring, gives players rest, allowing them to recover and think about how to improve, may be more effective than mass practice due to similarity with actual game. The disadvantages of distributed practice is can take longer to develop skills due to lack of repetition compared with mass practice. Number 7 is a fixed practice. Fixed practice that conditions remain unchanged or fixed, suitable for closed skills where the environment does not affect the execution of the skill, enables habitual movements to be learned effectively. Fixed practice is when the whole movement of a skill is repeatedly practiced in the same way so it becomes learned. The skill is not broken down into smaller parts. Fixed practice is used when the sport is mainly made up of closed skills and the performer can practice in a situation. For example, repeatedly practicing a whole skill within a training session. Free throw shooting in basketball is a closed skill and fixed practice is used to make a player's shot as consistent as possible. The advantages of fixed practice are ingrained skill over time, develops motor program, high percent of success, closed skills that replicate competitions, The disadvantages are doesn't promote decision making, shot selection, can ingrain wrong technique, tedious, overuse injuries, limited value for open skills, same environment. And the last types and method of practice is varied practice. Varied practice is the practice should closely resemble the true life situation. Where it is an open skill, it is important that the practice situation is varied so that the performer can draw from the strategies in their long-term memory. Varied practice involves repeating the skill in a variety of situations, which best suit the development of open skills. For example, catching the ball when playing against an opposition, such as invasion games like rugby union or netball. Pressurizing in different situations and positions on the court or field. Another example, a varied practice approach to learning to shoot a basketball might involve a sequence of 10 mid-range jump shots, followed by 10 layups, followed by 10 free throws, followed by 10 three-pointers, with the entire cycle repeating 10 times. And that would be all my report. Thank you for listening.